This week's Big Idea Show, I'm here with Nina Clark.
Hello.
Hello, and we are talking audiences. So, building your audience, how to get feedback, how to share audiences, the whole lot. So stay tuned, Big Idea Show coming up.
Woohoo.
The Big Idea Show with Liù Batchelor. Proudly supported by Bowfish Glass Services. That was Avicii with Hey Brother, and the lovely Nina Clark is in the studio.
Hello.
Hello. Right. Thank you for coming in, Nina, and co-hosting.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's
a
good.
joy.
I love chatting to you. We had a chat, didn't we? Oh my God, I think, were you the first guest on my show?
Oh, yes, I was. When was that? Was that April?
I think it was April.
Good Lord.
Is it? I'll have to look at the dates, whether we're exactly on 6 months. Wait, April, May, June, July,
Yeah,
September.
no, I think...
Oh, no, wait, we're way out. We're like
we're
8.
even over. Mate, you've been doing it that long.
I missed my birthday, my 6-month radio anniversary, right?
Well, you'll definitely do something for the 1 year.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so sorry, before we get stuck in the weeds of dates, let's talk about what we're going to talk about.
Quite right.
So this started from a discussion, didn't it? A fair old while ago. Again, I'm not going to try and think of the dates because that's not relevant.
Don't need that.
It's not relevant to listeners out there, around audiences, right?
Sure.
And the importance of audiences.
Yeah.
And obviously you with your musical background, we're thinking of a kind of an audience as in a performer and someone listening.
Certainly.
But it's something I've been looking in a lot, is audiences like if you've got a business or you're doing an event, it's your people that turn up.
Absolutely.
Right?
Participants.
Exactly. And so just to have a chat about that, how do we build that? Because
right. It's a big question.
Yeah, right. And it's the essential part of, you don't have a product, you don't have a performance, you don't have a show if you don't have anyone to see it.
Exactly. So I think the more consideration artists or businesses or community events give to that question, I think the better off they're going to be. But it's a big question, and it can stump you sometimes. And certainly for me, the idea of audience has, it's evolving. Whatever the project is that I'm doing, I have to kind of consider, okay, my thing is inclusivity, so how do I bring in as many people as possible from maybe disparate areas of community into this idea, and that's challenging.
Yep.
But it's also exciting.
Yeah, I guess, like I said, inclusivity. That's the key thing, right? It's audience before. Is it some? Well, could it be audience before the product? Like, that's maybe the question. Is the big challenge that we get to, especially creatively, we think about a creative idea and then we go, who would like this, rather than going, who needs something or is struggling or has a challenge or is disconnected in the case of kind of being inclusive.
Yeah. And
then we should think about what they need rather than.
Certainly, I think either way round you do it, as long as you're considering that, then it can't fail really. But that's not to say that you're not going to face some challenges in engaging people, because that's necessary. Just getting the word out about things is often kind of tricky, and you don't know which places people are looking for information, and some people might not be looking at all.
Yeah, finding, I guess, when you identify maybe a challenge that members of society might have, but they don't identify that they've got that challenge, like trying to engage people who don't normally engage in stuff.
Yeah.
They don't engage, so they don't really know that they're maybe missing out.
Sure.
It's a challenging starting point, right?
And so I guess my go-to is always just be super enthusiastic. Be tenacious, keep at it, keep throwing the ideas out there, and see who bites, basically.
Yeah.
And really, more often than not, word of mouth is what has swung something for me.
Okay.
More than any, and I've used lots of different promotional tools, but people telling their friends or their family about something that's going on, that's the real golden ticket, because it's genuine.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we're going to take a break now, and then we're going to come back, and I think what I'd like to talk about is, I guess, your project, Nina's talk about, as, I guess, a case study for you building your audience, and also then to look at how can we learn, how can we understand our audience a bit more. So we're going to have lots more chat throughout the rest of the show, but for now we're going to have Sam Smith with Like I Can. The Big Idea Show. Proudly supported by Bowfish Glass Services.
That was Love Songs by Steve Hewitt, who is a local musician, I believe, Kent man.
Absolutely. Nina Clark, Miss Promo of local music. We love it. There's on the subject of which, what have we got coming up? Seeing as we've got you in the studio, you can't not tell us about what we've got to look forward to.
We've got lots of things coming up soon, actually. Actually, at the end of this month, the last weekend of November, there's going to be a Hendrix celebration weekend, which is very exciting. You can find out about that on Facebook, on the Folkestone Music Town page.
If in doubt, go to Facebook.
Exactly.
Right? It's just everywhere.
Absolutely. And there is also a little website for it as well. So, yeah, there's going to be loads of fun. We're going to try and get as many people in on that and play some Hendrix licks and have a good time. So that's coming up, and that's all Folkestone based.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We are so lucky, aren't we?
We
How much
really
we've got
are.
going on.
Such a lot of talent around.
Really lucky. Okay, cool, nice stuff. Right, let's go back to our discussion about audiences, shall we?
Indeed.
In the hope that we can help build some audiences for the Hendrix weekend and any other events or music
Absolutely.
or projects that anyone is doing out there. So I always think it's good to start with a kind of a reference to some sort of case study or some sort of project that we know well,
Yep.
and then from that wider discussions can come. So I wanted to ask you a bit about Nina's Talk About
Hey!
and where that all started from, and kind of how you've gone about the process of trying to build your audience, grow your audience, and engage them and give them value.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I was saying a little bit earlier, I still feel like the Friday Talk About is in a little bit of a beta stage. I'm still testing the ground. I've done, I think there must be about sort of 22, 23 of them now. So I feel like my format is kind of a little bit more solid, and I like it to feel kind of as spontaneous as possible.
Yeah.
But I was told early on by the great Jane Unsworth, actually, about, have one topic and one call to action in your vlogs.
Per vlog.
Exactly.
Is that, or across the whole?
Well, generally in a vlog, I think that was her point. And I know in the early stages of the Talk About, I rambled through like a billion things. And why would anyone retain any of that? Because that's too many.
Yeah.
So I think that's been really useful for me in terms of the process of creating it, has been, have a point and then ask people to get involved in some way. So that's been useful. And in terms of trying to build an audience for it, it's kind of that, it's a strange thing because it's still only just on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I'm just getting those, responses from people already in my sphere, as it were.
Yeah.
And I feel like the next stage for it, and really to test that idea of how it would work with another audience, is to put it on YouTube and see what responses it gets from a wider kind of sphere.
Yeah. And what's the difference then there? You said about putting it in your existing group of friends, your existing circles on Facebook, versus doing it on YouTube, which, I don't know, I always wonder, is our personal audience and our personal friendship groups, is that a harder audience or an easier? Because you go, well, people want to support.
Absolutely.
Right? But
and so there's an element of rent a crowd there, which has been I don't say that in to denigrate it at all. That's been a massive part of my experience of audiences over the years, and my mum and dad still come to all of my gigs.
Yeah.
But the idea of testing it with a broader sort of spectrum of viewers is interesting to me, because who knows what responses I'll get from that and how it might develop the content.
Yeah.
Because that's something I'm really interested in.
Yeah,
it
definitely.
being more interactive.
Yeah, and I guess defining a specific audience, because I guess, we said rent a crowd, and when it's your existing group of friends or family,
Sure.
they will probably be more supportive, but at the same time, they're probably less specific in who you want to target, because
Absolutely.
they are supportive rather than actually the people that want, and they're not your early adopters, right? They're only the early adopters because of by default.
Exactly.
As opposed to being those that actually get value. So do we maybe get a kind of misrepresentation, which could go either way?
That's what I mean. I think that's the idea of Facebook as a platform is brilliant, but I think it might, for the Talk About, ultimately be not limiting, but just a good first stage, and then I think it needs to grow and see where it develops from there.
Yeah. find something much more niche, because I always like the saying that now that we've got the internet and it's so easy to connect with people online, is if you have a thought or you have an idea or you have a problem that your product or service or whatever it is will overcome, there will be someone else out there who wants or feels that. Like the niche market is growing in and it's multiplying. And so, putting it outside of that is a completely different world. But within your friends and family, there might be no one who fits that niche.
Absolutely.
In which case, you could kind of go, oh, well, it's not working because my Facebook doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But it's got to go beyond.
I think also because the Talk About started initially as, it's me talking about music and elements of creativity and that sort of thing, I don't want it to feel like it's only for people who are interested in that as a topic.
Yeah.
So quite soon after it began, I tried to broaden it to make it more inclusive and to invite more people into that idea, because it's not just about, for example, it's not a tutorial. It's not, guitar chords and going through this, that, or the other in a musically specific way. It's a bit broader. So it's really just about trying to encourage people to follow their own creativity, whatever that might be.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Right, let's have another break now. We are sneaking up to the 6-minute link mark, which is where the buzzer goes off and I get told off. Right, we have to have some more music. It's Frey with How to Save a Life. The Big Ideas Show. Proudly supported by Bullfish Glass Services.
Boom, boom, bada, bada, boom, 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 boom. Freak out! We have Chic and Le Freak coming up.
And I haven't even planned these tracks. These are like playlisted in, but they seem to be absolute perfect for Nina.
Well, we're going to do some Steely Dan later, and that will be doubly perfect.
Yes, definitely. Well, hopefully, if I can find it on the system.
We'll have a look.
Fingers crossed. Right, okay. We were chatting. What were we chatting about? We were talking about getting audience feedback, and more specifically, how do we create because it's typical, isn't it, that you have performance or product or business, whatever, and the audience is a passive recipient of that. As
a traditional approach.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than you said about beta testing with the Talk About, and that's something I personally have felt like with this show. It's like constantly evolving as I learn more from people. But how do we encourage feedback? Because getting someone to stick their hand up and say, actually, I didn't like that, but have you thought about this? It's really hard.
It is, and I think really the model of delivery has to evolve alongside. If you want that as your result, you want a more participatory or more engaged audience, then how you deliver your content or your product has got to evolve alongside. In the way that, I don't know, marketing or advertising back in the day was very hard sell, very like, here's your Kellogg's, eat it, and now it's not like that. Everything is much more sidled up to, and kind of encouraged in a, I don't want to say subliminal because that sounds manipulative, but in terms of how to engage audiences to respond and feedback and give us their opinion and guide the makers of whatever the product is, I think I don't think there's any hard and fast answer to that, but as long as you can in some way, I think the call to action thing has been really helpful for me. So I'm always trying to ask questions now in the Talk About and see, if that maybe raises some hands and get people to give me their experience of whatever it is I'm talking about, because that's super valuable to me as well. It's going to evolve what I'm doing, but also I want to hear that person's story. I do care. So if you can, I think you have to be genuinely, you have to genuinely care about that. So if you can convey that, then that helps. And I think that's about building trust. Yeah,
trust is the big thing there, isn't it? Like, why would they, if you're not going to listen to their opinion, or if they don't think that you will, they're never going to contribute.
No, absolutely, but it should be a conversation, the creative process. And we were talking about the idea of, can we blur the lines between audience and participant? So there's some magic grey area in the middle of that whereby people feel that they're included in what you're doing.
Absolutely, and the listeners will probably hate. I'm always using TED examples, but it just felt like such a kind of perfect process of how it all came together. Was my personal experience. And whenever I'm struggling to get feedback, normally it's because I'm thinking about it too much, and I've gone too far down the process, and I kind of am just asking, what do you think? Which is a very hard question to answer and ask a lot of the audience, rather than when I am a bit more, like with TED, when we started it up, I didn't really know anything about what we were going to do, if it was going to work. And I kind of went, I've got an idea. Is anyone up for it? And I kind of left this huge open gap for people to then step into and say, yes, we do, or have you thought? And rather than, oh, we're doing this on this day at this time. What do you think? Because they know, and when you see on Facebook when people ask questions, and sometimes they'll ask questions that the answer goes nowhere,
or they already know what answer they want.
Exactly.
Absolutely, I've done it myself. But that idea of trust, I think, therefore, is on both sides of the line. So you making that statement, I've got this idea, and then opening that up to people, that takes trust on your part as well. So I think, people should feel like they can contribute to this creative process, whatever whoever's, if it is, and some people are more or less happy to receive that sort of stuff, but generally, in my experience, interesting makers of whatever are really interested in that feedback, and really super grateful to receive it, and then use it to guide their process. So it's never wasted.
Definitely.
That's not to say trolls don't exist, but we don't need to worry about them.
I think what it comes down to for me is that everyone wants to feel like they contribute, or that they have a particular insight, or that they're knowledgeable in a certain area, so that when you say, oh, I'm looking for recommendations, for example, on Facebook, and it can be about anything. It doesn't have to be anything kind of really involved, like what's your opinion or what's your ideas. I need an opinion for a recommendation for a plumber. You've contributed and you've helped someone else, and we all get that great sense of personal reward, and the whole there's no selfless good deed, right? And if we can allow people to feel that in contributing to us, for me, that's ultimately kind of why we do it.
And I think that's what the merging of audience / participant is that you're acting like a community that helps one another. And don't we all want to feel like we're part of that? And anything worth its salt should be involving and including people. So, I think it should work itself out. Ultimately.
If we're open to the community. Okay, right. Queen up next. We'll be back more on the Big Idea Show, 105.9 Academy FM Folkestone. The Big Idea Show. Proudly supported by Bullfish Glass Services. On Bake Off and Netflix, right?
Exactly, because I know how tempting it is to just vegetate on the couch or the bed and just absorb oneself into television. I am a big believer in the well-being creating benefits of that. But obviously, when you have events on of an evening, you're competing directly with that urge in someone to just I'll check it out next time,
the easy option, right?
And so I guess, what value do we need to add to our experiences that we're offering people so that they do come out and turn off Bake Off or Netflix or whatever?
And I guess this is a different question depending whether we're talking about getting them out of the house to an event, or if it's downloading a podcast, say, about a specific kind of, maybe something that's more educational rather than or like watching a TED Talk rather than watching Bake Off. And is it different times, we need different things at different times, or is it more that you get into a habit of, oh, I'm watching this series, whereas if you got yourself into a habit of, like at one point when I was commuting for work, I was like, right, 40 minutes, that's 2 perfect TED Talks, I download it, listen to the audio in my car, and it fitted my lifestyle. So maybe that's the bigger question.
I think routine is definitely a big part of the answer to that, because I know of an evening, past a certain point, I want to watch Stranger Things or whatever, you know, and maybe in the morning I need something inspirational. I want to, you know, watch Yoga with Adrienne or whatever it be. Not watch, join in with. But that, so maybe there's something that is a consideration we need to think about when programming.
Yeah.
And choosing the platforms and when we air things. I know my talk about is definitely like a crappy time slot. Why am I'm doing it because it's convenient for me at that time, but that's not necessarily convenient for my audience. So that's something I have to evolve and
I guess
change.
in your situation, there's that balance, isn't there? Like, it's convenient for you, and it's got to be convenient for you. Otherwise, the chances are you wouldn't have kept up the 23 episodes you've done.
Yeah.
But when it gets to the point and you're like, well, people are getting the value, I'm going to make that time elsewhere because it's worth it and I can justify it. And maybe this is actually a discussion I was having kind of earlier with Rachel about changing the route at which we achieve our goals. So our goal may be to inspire people. That's what I always want to do, is inspire them and have them see, oh my God, it is possible for me to do X, Y, and Z, what I want to do. Or it's to have people be moved by your music or whatever it may be. But the fact is, there's different routes, right? There's, and I look at my kind of situation, because I always like talking about when it's personal to you, but it's like, well, the radio show is one way of hopefully inspiring people. TEDx is a way of inspiring people. I'll do a lot of kind of just conversations with people one-to-one. And what's quite nice about looking at those different avenues, and it's like, okay, if we go to Canterbury, there's probably a ton of different routes. Like, you know, there's the clear, easy ones, and there are the long-winded ones. And if you kind of go, well, this route doesn't mean that people aren't interested in what I'm doing and what I'm trying to, the value I'm trying to offer. It just means maybe this route isn't efficient. Maybe you've gone via Tenterden to get to Canterbury. That's not efficient.
Absolutely.
And of course, no one's going to do that.
No one's going to do that.
But that doesn't mean going to Canterbury isn't a good thing to do.
Quite right.
To just put a very crude example in there.
I think that's true, and so it's wheedling out the inefficiencies in your process is going to be a helpful, you know, troubleshooting thing. Because if you can't do it, like, I could continue doing it in that time slot forever and make it more difficult for myself to achieve a wider audience, or I could just acknowledge that that's something I need to work on and you know, swap around.
Or you might find you get loads of listeners in the States or in Australia, because for them
it's perfect time.
It's a perfect Saturday morning wake up, or a Friday morning when they're kind of relaxing.
And I think a bigger a wider platform for that would answer those questions. So it's testing out that as well.
And I think for me, the big take home, and if I was going to give one piece of advice to people from this discussion, this little bit here is, don't be disheartened that you don't have something of value. Just see, okay, this one route isn't the best route. Try a different route. And particularly that's where, for me, that the focus has to be on what's the value, or what's the impact, or what's the positive change you want to have for other people and for yourself, beyond my goal is to create a podcast, for example. My goal is to inspire people. A podcast may not be the way to do it. It may be doing something completely different. Who knows? So, and
being not too fixed around that. Be tenacious and pursue that thing, but keep your mind open to other possibilities. For sure.
Definitely. Okay, music time again. It is Foxes with Better Love. The Big Ideas Show. Proudly supported by Bullfish Glass Services.
Well, I cannot be more delighted to say that was Steely Dan and Peg.
There we go. The benefits of being a co-host. We get to sneak in Nina's request.
Amazing.
And it is topical to the discussion.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
For sure.
We haven't just crowbarred that in there. Go on, what you were saying, this is relevant, right?
Well, because we're talking about audiences, and I'm interested in what does the audience get out of it? What is the experience that is valuable to an audience? And I went to see Steely Dan on Sunday at the O2, and it was powerful. It was emotional. We sadly lost Walter Becker, who was one of the founding members of Steely Dan, a month ago. So it was a very beautiful experience to be there, and I have loved that band for 15 years, so there's something strangely magical that happens when you get to sort of fuse your your wishes and your dreams about an artist or something like that, and then they're in the room with you, and yes, that room is vast, but it's still they're still there. So that's extraordinary, and that happens on like a microcosm level as well for everyone, I think, in those, you know, audience experiences. If you can reach someone in that way, I think that's powerful.
And was that interaction, that you feeling part of it, kind of as an audience member, as a participant, was that because of the power of them as an artist and a performer, or was there anything specific they did?
Well, he's just so Donald Fagen is just very cool as well. He's so enjoying himself. I mean, that's my major tip to all performers, is enjoy yourself, and you've won the crowd. So that was palpable from the get-go, and therefore everyone else is put at ease, and then everyone gets to enjoy themselves too. And
you say kind of at ease. I guess that comes back to our word of kind of trust, and audience having to trust the performer or the business or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
In order to create that relationship where they can add to it. And it's interesting, isn't it, that how do we this idea of creating a feeling, and I've personally kind of gone, when I've done events, kind of gone, right, this is the feeling I want to create, both for myself, it's for the audience, but I'm going to create it in myself in order to hopefully have other people feel it. And it is done, and I'd love to speak to kind of big artists and say, what do you think about beforehand? Is this a conscious thing, or is it just that you love it so much that it all comes out?
I think you can set an intention.
That's it. Intention is the start of everything, isn't it?
Exactly.
Right, and I'm going to say my intention now is we're running over. We're going to have to go to the news. So it's coming up to the hour. It's 12 o'clock. We'll be back with the second half of the Big Ideas Show after the news. The Big Ideas Show. Proudly supported by Bullfish Glass Services. Kaleidophone, write to me on the Big Ideas Show with me, Liù Batchelor. I've got my own name there. And for today, Nina Clark co-hosting with me on 105.9 Academy FM Folkestone, discussing audiences.
Indeed.
As a very big general topic, and we've already picked up on loads of points, haven't we? But we were chatting off air, saying about the energy and the impact that having an audience has to you as I'll say the creator of, because then we're trying to include everything. And just to kind of, I guess, give you an example of something it's felt an explicit difference, and has been the difference between being able to create and not being able to create, is, for example, at one point I was like, I'd like to try doing vlogs, and you do the typical hold your phone up in front of your face and then try and talk to it, and I just go and I procrastinate and I never get around to doing it, and it's just awful, right? As opposed to going, if I have a chat with someone, suddenly it's so, even if they don't have to say anything, it's just having someone to speak to. And I don't know whether it sounds maybe a bit obvious, but I feel the same with the radio. I'm rubbish talking to myself, but that's why I like having co-hosts like you, Nina.
And that thank you. But that, I used to feel that way about doing admin. My buddy and I used to do co-adminning, so you've got someone to bounce your ideas off, and that energy is absolutely what an audience brings to the table. They're receiving, certainly it's a reciprocal thing, but they're also giving out their energy, whether they know they are or not. So that vibe is coming back. So as much, I know sometimes a lot of people can feel like they have to win over an audience, particularly in a performance space, and I feel really strongly that by and large you don't. You don't have to win them over. You have to trust your skills and enjoy yourself, like I was saying before. So I have had some lovely experiences with audiences, and I've had some less lovely experiences, but all of them were valid, and all of them were real, and taught me something about the process. So you can't necessarily depend upon what that energy is going to do to you, but you can be present for it, and then see how, if it is, sometimes it might be negative, see how you can transform that. Allow it to be like a fun challenge. Because
and
if you let it beat you, it's just absolutely, terminal. You've got to keep your energy up.
And maybe that, but if when it is negative energy, there's an element of learning.
Absolutely.
Of, oh, okay, maybe this venue isn't right for me, or the material isn't right.
Exactly, whatever it is, there will be something valid to take away from that.
Okay, so if we're talking about building audiences, you could go, well, yeah, having an audience there is going to change the energy, but the challenge I'm sure people are kind of going as well, yeah, but how do I get that audience? So
Sure.
What about, if we kind of talk about that a bit, like, yes, we said already about friends and family and kind of just having people there for support, and I know I personally tend not to, because I feel like that's cheating. It's not cheating, but you know.
No, I get that.
And also there's more pressure when it's friends and family. But so how, outside of that, how can we have people support us or be that audience and feel that they are contributing just by listening or responding?
I think, first of all, don't wait for them.
Okay.
So start.
Yep.
Get on with it. Make your product, do your thing, whatever, do your performance, whatever your creative thing is, make it happen.
Yep.
Start, and then just keep doing it, and try to come back to enthusiasm. If you can try to imbue what you're doing with as much positivity as possible, people are attracted to that.
Yeah.
And also it makes the whole experience more fun for you.
Yeah.
So, you know, if what you're doing or you're creating is a chore for you, that might not be the thing.
Yeah.
Or
Definitely
if it
agree
is,
with that.
then fine, but perhaps that you need to be mindful that that's going to bleed into how it's received.
Yeah.
So it's whether or not that's important to you, or whether it's important to the product.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is, if you are already doing something and you're building momentum, people will join that train. You know, they will start to hear about what you're doing, or you know, the word of mouth thing again.
Yeah.
You know, you'll start to build some momentum, and I think if you can keep something consistent going, that's really key.
Yeah, consistency is a big one, isn't it? Because it allows people to know, if you ask someone, oh, come to this event, and they go, okay, but what is it? And you go, I'm not going to tell you. That's obviously a lot harder for them to accept, rather than this has been a consistent thing, and making it easy for our audiences. Yeah. Really, isn't it? So
I think there's a fine line there as well. You have to kind of balance that out with, are you oversaturating your local scene, which I know I sometimes do, or what, you know, are you burning yourself out? So you've got to, you know, you've got to be kind of have your eye on both sides of that.
Yeah.
But momentum and consistency, I think, are really helpful, at least.
Definitely, yeah, and get you started, and then hopefully keep you going once you build that little bit of audience, bit by bit. Nice stuff. Okay, you are listening to The Big Ideas Show. I'm Liù Batchelor, this is Nina Clark, and up next is The Beatles. The Big Ideas Show. Proudly supported by Bullfish Glass Services. So it is a little bit past, well, a fair bit past 12:30 now here on The Big Idea Show. That was fine, Young Cannibal. She drives me crazy.
Classic tune.
On The Big Idea Show. Okay, so our next, well, I guess our final kind of big discussion really on audiences is going to be around sharing audiences. And I guess this seemed quite topical, seeing as we've just done a shout out to Emily. And around Halfway to Heaven and finding supporters and volunteers to keep that site open, the Halfway to Heaven site open. Because we're essentially sharing our audience with her and her project. Yeah. So what, and this is kind of, I guess we're going to use the discussion really around music particularly, aren't we, in this point, but I think it feeds into everything. Yeah, as an example, because I think that's something that Folkeston's quite good at doing, is sharing audiences. And obviously, Nina, you've been very involved with the Folkeston Music Town kind of project, and that's all about coming together to create a collective audience for everyone. But how can we maybe apply that, take that to the next level in terms of building our audiences by sharing our audiences?
Well, I think that there's such a lot of the media anyway, things like the X Factor or whatever, that culture of it being competitive in the arts, which I don't hold truck with at all. And my experience of being in the creative industries has been nothing like that either. All of the great people I've worked with have been supportive of each other and cool to work with, and good people. So when you get venues that support local artists. And also, we were talking about the Lime Bar as an
Yeah.
example. They are fabulous at supporting local talent, as well as bringing in loads of great acts from around the world. And you just generate more and more great art that
Yeah.
way. And that does attract audiences. So that idea of businesses in that way supporting the local scene, but also the artists within it, you know, us giving MP's good a shout out. That's really important, I think, to me to say, do you know what? I want you to go and see such and such at my gig, and be telling someone else about the next great thing they should check out. Whether they know about it or not, you're gonna just create more. It's good for the economy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're just going to create more of a community sense on your scene.
And if our aim is, I think we mentioned it earlier, didn't we, about getting people off the sofa and out, away from, Netflix and Bake Off, then just getting them out more regular and in the habit of being out, then even if they're not coming to your gig or your event on this occasion, they're like, oh, I had a good time, therefore I'm more likely to go to the next one.
Absolutely.
But I think we're doing it quite well in Folkestone, I think.
Definitely.
But I think in business wise it's a little trickier, isn't it? Because people don't like it, kind of, you mentioned it there about being competitive,
sure.
And like, oh no, you can't share, but I think
you definitely can.
Yeah, totally.
I think everyone grows that way.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I get coffee from a number of places. I'm not exclusively a such and such person.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for, and I think there's too much credence given to the idea of people being, set in their ways. And I think again, it's about trust. If you can trust your audience or your customer to be diverse and be an individual, rather than a marketable member of a demographic. That's what humans are, after all. We are individuals. So we like versatility, we like variety. And if you then, as a business or as an artist, suggest something that person might like, it works out well for everyone.
Yeah, you're providing them value, which is not that they have to have your product.
No,
it's that
just that
they feel
if you
what
like
you
this,
ever.
you might enjoy, which is, I know algorithms do that online these days.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why we can't do that genuinely as people and creators. So, the Lime Bar, as that stalwart in Folkestone, they're always going to keep furthering people's scene and keep putting more great stuff on.
Yeah, and this is kind of, I guess, slightly feeds into this, maybe a slightly off point, but I remember being at a creative kind of business workshop school type thing that I did, and someone said, and the head of the who was leading the workshop was saying, oh, have you got an audience for your product?
Yeah.
And I said, oh no, I think I'm the only one. And he was like, oh, that's a shame. And I went, huh? Isn't it good that I'm the only person? And he was like, no, because if you've got an audience, it shows people want it. And I guess that's it. It's like
trust.
And having, and I think if you're a new artist, and again, we're using music, if you're a new creator of whatever, the fact that there is already an audience in place, you shouldn't be scared of that, because it means you've got an audience to go into, to share other audiences, and then define within that who your
That's why open mics are so great.
Yeah.
Because that's everyone. Everyone's there to support one another anyway, or should be. And if you think of yourself as competing with other people, then you will, and that's a self-fulfilling, sad prophecy.
Yeah.
Or if you think of going up and doing that as a great and fun opportunity to express yourself, you will have that experience. It's setting your intention again.
Yeah. Intention again.
Intention.
It all comes down to that. Find your
Really
why,
does. Yes,
and
mate.
everything falls into place.
Yes, it
Okay, music time again. Jimmy Nail, Ain't No Doubt. The Big Ideas Show. Proudly supported by Bullfish Glass Services. Pixie Lot, crashing the vocal there. Pixie Lot, the penultimate song in the Big Ideas Show. So Nina, thank you very
Oh,
much indeed for
mate.
joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
It's been great fun. I love having
Yay.
these chats, and hopefully other people do too. But
Too right.
absolutely. Okay, so, but do you want to leave us on one final pearl of wisdom?
Yeah, we were trying to figure out how to sum this up.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, we've talked a lot about this and really what are our takeaways from this. And I was saying about my obnoxiously titled Triangle of Success when it comes to singing, which is what I try to pass on to students, is there are 3 things I always try and get embedded in people, and one of them being breathing.
Yep.
Another one being your formants, which essentially means open your mouth more. And the third one being kind of the most important, and that's setting your intention.
Yeah. Intention!
Intention! There should be like a little buzzer that goes off and it sings intention.
Yeah. Your why, as I call it.
Exactly.
A big one. But I think even though it's singing, I think breathing,
it applies. Yeah, breathe, open your mouth, and set an intention.
Open your mouth and tell people what you're doing sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I always like to think. Get it out there. That's what I've always found. The longer I hold on to it, the more I worry about whether it's going to work.
Exactly.
And then it never does.
Crack on.
But the sooner I go, I got this idea. What do people think?
It manifests.
Yeah. You let life bring the results for you. That sounds very hippie, but you know what I mean?
True.
Tell people, and if they like it, they'll tell you, and if they don't, you'll also know, and you can move on and not waste your time. So that will probably a good note to finish on, to not waste the time. We are running out of time. I'm going to leave you with some Major Lasers, the last song on the Big Idea Show. We are here every Saturday morning, so please do join us next week as well, 11 till 1, the Big Idea Show. Folkestone, go out there, have some fun. Nina, thank you very much.
Thank you. Whoop, whoop, Liu.
Whoop, whoop. Get out there, Folkestone, and keep inspiring.
Yay.
The Big Ideas Show with Liù Batchelor. Proudly supported by Bullfish Glass Services.